It's the Awake Space podcast, and I'm Laurie Rivers, here to help you with some inspiration to get those aspirations out into the world. Well, wouldn't you know it, I thought I'd get ahead of things and record a whole episode ahead of schedule. And I did. And then the world decided to world, and I'm like, think I'll save that one for later and edit the heck out of it. And today we're going to talk about a few things that are up on people's minds. One, we're going to talk about the Ashley St. Clair situation. I've been getting a lot of questions about that. Then we're going to talk about Barbault's basket. I know people are saying Barbault. He was French. It's Barbault. And it's interesting. One of the reasons I shy away from using terms like aspect patterns is because people overemphasize the pattern itself and not the meaning. Not saying Barbault did that. Barbault was actually a very, very phenomenal researching astrologer. But people get overly excited by the terms without understanding the meaning. Okay, just like when we talk about yods, people are like, it means the finger of God, or the Higgs boson, the God particle. True story about the God particle is Higgs was looking for this particle in the 60s, couldn't find it, and his paper was originally titled The Goddamn Particle because he couldn't find it. They wouldn't let him use damned in the paper title, so it was just called the God particle. People ran with that name. We can't just assign meaning like that. It doesn't work that way. I feel like I spent a lot of my life going, it doesn't work that way. By the way, it was very exciting in 2012 when they found the Higgs boson and he was alive to see it. I cried when that news came through. Anyway, I'm still in London, and it is hot as Satan's soul. I was going to say something else. But it is very hot, and today, Sunday, the 24th of May, and you could probably hear I'm a little congested, and that would be because I caught a summer cold, and it is a cold. It's nothing more serious than that. It's hot in the rooms because there's no air conditioning. I do have a snazzy fan that I have off for recording. I went to the Chelsea Flower Show yesterday, and it was really beautiful, so I'll make sure we have some really pretty pictures in the cutscenes in between segments. The flowers were just beautiful. And this Libra moon was very delighted by it. I used to be an avid gardener during my Earth Goddess Mama phase. And when I did herbalism and I made tinctures and salves and all the fun, good things for my family. I had a beautiful garden, and it was nice to see other beautiful gardens. I don't have time to garden now, but it takes time and dedication and patience. And as I was saying in the live stream in the Awake Space community, you guys are my garden. Watching you grow is what is most satisfying to me these days. So get your coffee, get your tea, get your Red Bull, get your matcha, get your H2O. Make sure you have some electrolytes if you're in Great Britain or in anywhere else having a heat wave. Pardon any ambient noise, but we're recording from the hotel room. I will be getting into a podcast studio. So whether we are driving to work, taking the kids to the park, going to a water slide, or going to the library or a museum, washing the clothes, folding the clothes, doing the dishes, if I'm your body double, or if I'm just putting you to sleep, which I do for a lot of people, then we're going to do it together. There's nothing worse than a summer cold. And it's been an interesting time here in London. We've had a lot of jokes in the Awake Space community because of my travel, the implications of travel, because it's been a heck of a ride. But I think I'm mostly sorted other than post-nasal dread. It's interesting. I've been talking about the Astro-Cartography, and one of the things I just wrote for members was an explanation that you don't have to live right on a line, or you don't have to travel exactly to a line to get the benefits, because the lines aren't separate from you. They are you. That's your energy. It isn't the Earth's energy. It's not a ley line activating you. Are ley lines real? Absolutely. But astrocartography lines don't they're not necessarily lining up with ley lines. If you don't know what ley lines are, they're areas that are most likely strong magnetic fields that can activate magnetic fields in us. Astrocartography lines are your energy and how it best operates in a geographical location. And in locational astrology, we can see that. So remember, astrocartography is locational astrology laid out on a map. Locational astrology is where you change the place of birth. That's it. And if you have good software, when you change the place, it'll change the time according to the time zone. So if, like me, I was born in the afternoon on the west coast of the United States. If I wanted to relocate to New York or North Carolina or wherever on the East Coast, then I would put in the location. And in my software, which is professional software, it says, there is a locality, and locality is locational astrology. I would go in and it'll figure out the time zone for me. But if I was doing this manually, like on astro.com, I would think about the time. So if I was born, let's say, at 2 in the afternoon on the West Coast, that would be 5 p.m. on the East Coast. Okay, it's because it's 3 hours ahead. There's just a little bit of math involved, but it's not hard. You can use a calculator online, and then I'd put in the place. That will show the change in the house layout. Okay. So the ascendant changes, but everything else changes too. And it changes where the placements are. Now, it doesn't change who you are. You are always who you are from your natal chart, but it shows how that you expresses differently in different locations. So again, I will always be a Scorpio rising Cancerian. I will always have, Saturn in the 6th house in Taurus. I will always be a worker bee with a lot of, well, I'm not a worker bee because I have Pluto in the 10th house. So I'll always be that large and in charge bitch who works really, really hard. But it is different. It is different when I travel. I still work hard, like here in London. I have a late Pisces rising. So the relocated chart is a late Pisces rising. Aries is intercepted. And then we have my the second house doesn't start till later in Taurus. So the Taurus Saturn is actually in the first house, and I have to be on the ball with my physicality. Okay, my body requires discipline here. And until I was able to get up to speed on my walking, 15,000 steps yesterday, not bad for a fat old lady. That wasn't just the Chelsea Flower Show. After the flower show, I walked back and then I walked around Hyde Park. Woohoo me. But I have to stay in tip top shape here. And so my body lets me know very quickly if I'm not. So there we go. I'm also seen as an expert wherever I go. And I am. I could be walking down the road and somebody's going to stop me and ask me for directions, or everybody thinks I'm from here. And I'm like, did you not hear my accent? Can't you hear I'm from the West Coast? But yeah. So it's very interesting to see how it plays out here. And Venus is in the 3rd house. I tend to be a little more poetic here. I tend to be a little more pensive here. I tend to be not more curious, because I don't know how I could be more curious, but my poetic side comes out. I'm looking at things differently when I'm walking around. I'm looking at the different lines on the building and the textures. And God, I wish I could paint. I take lots of photos. So I think my goal for this year is to take a painting class, even though I'm blind. Renoir and Matisse both had bad vision. And, shouldn't stop me, right? So I'll just do impressionism because it's an impression of what I see. But anyway, so the lines don't change you when you travel. They're how your energy interacts with that area. And that's why if you were born on your Pluto line and you live you're like, what's the big deal? It's no big deal to you because that's just your normal sense of operation. Whereas if you move to one, it could be a very intense, transformative experience. And people often think of that as a bad thing because it can be very, very uncomfortable. And there can be things we conceive as negative that happen. In fact, I have a client I famously got out of the Pluto line. It wasn't a great place for them. at all. It was, in fact, very unproductive for them to be there. Taught them a lot. They became a lot more of who they came onto this planet to be, but it was beyond uncomfortable. And we spent a good 18 months trying to get them out of there. And we did, and they're in a much better place now. I put up a graphic in the article I wrote for magazine subscribers and up of both the Jupiter and the Uranus crossing lines that I have here. I believe it's a Jupiter crossing node and Uranus crossing node, and which is a bit like a midpoint, so to speak. Anyway, notice it's 78 miles away from London. There's plenty of influence within 100 miles. You can have influence within 1,500 miles. You don't have to be right on top of a line. Okay. There we go. So I'm just saying, when it comes to astrocartography, stop giving your power away. Stop it! Because it's you and how you operate in the world. It is not how the world forces you to operate, even a Pluto line, because we all carry that energy inside of us. Not one of us is without immense transformative power inside of us. And when we resist that, when we bulk up against it, and it's hard not to sometimes, that's where the problems happen. So there's that. I'm enjoying London. Last time was a bit surreal because I hadn't been back since the 90s. And the last time I'd come through, I was escaping a very dysfunctional and abusive situation with the love of my life. I'm going to say substances suck and they are no longer living, but it had gotten bad. And so I was making my way to the States. I was trying to get them to come and go to rehab, and that did not work. That gambit failed, but in 2024, when I came out with Sarah, it was surreal. It was a healing trip. This time, I'm getting to just kind of relax and enjoy. I've gotten a lot of sleep. You could tell by looking at the old eyeballs. It is not so much a healing trip, although you could tell I got sick. But some of that is probably the detoxing I've been doing from lack of movement, not walking around enough in Wyoming, which once I get back, I will make sure I make part of my routine because I feel so much better walking. You get out of shape and out of habit, and then you don't want to do it, right? Because it hurts. So it's a very walkable space here in London. It is very hot, as I said, and it's going to get hotter. And I haven't decided if Tuesday I'm going to take off for York and go see the Shambles. I'll give you a history lesson if I do. I think it's very exciting. I never got to go. I went to Yorkshire when I was in university to see friends, and nobody wanted to go to the museums with me. And back then, I wasn't as ornery as I am now, and I should have just gone and done it, and I didn't. So I'm going to do it this time. And I figured out today, because I was like, where am I going to go? All of the cafes have been packed. It is, when the sun comes out in London, everybody's outside because it's almost unbearable to be in your hotel room. And so all of the parks are full and all of the cafes are full. And it is a beautiful cosmopolitan city. My Gemini Venus is over the moon listening to all the different languages and seeing all the different kinds of families and, just people from everywhere, which is always wonderful. However, I was like, I know there's places I can go that'll be cool. I don't know why I forgot about it. But I did a quick Google search. I can go to the Victoria and Albert Museum and it will be cool. Inside there, I can go to the British Library as well, which I probably will sometime this week. But the Victoria and Albert Museum is very close to where I'm staying. So it's a much shorter walk. I don't really feel like walking the 3 miles. I would take a cab. It's just been too hot. So it's going to be over 90 degrees tomorrow, which is really hot in England. Like 70, 75 used to be tops. It is just very, very hot here. If you are in the UK and you're tuning in, here's a hack. If you've got a fan, and I hope to God you do, because this is not going to be the only hot weather you get this year. We're going to have globally some of the highest heat indexes we've ever seen. However, wet a towel, get naked on your bed and put a fan directly on you and it will immediately start dropping your body temperature. All right. Don't send me pictures. I don't want to see your naked bodies. Okay. All right. But that's an old hack. Okay, it's a bit like a swamp cooler. But if you put a wet towel on and you put the fan on, you will cool off, and it'll cool your core temperature down if you're overheating. You also might want to have some ice packs, and if you've got a little freezer, you could put water bottles in. That's a great reuse for plastic water bottles, and you can put them under your neck, in between your thighs, under your armpits. That will also bring your core temperature down so you're not overheating. Old hacks from an old broad. There's that. If you've got peppermint oil, you can, in a little spray bottle, you can put peppermint oil into just some distilled water, and you can use that to freshen up. And it's it's a natural cooling. Feels good for a second anyway. So there's that. I'm going to be talking about Ashley St. Clair and what she's doing. A lot of people, you guys all want to know. I'll probably be talking about this in Patreon only. I often weigh and measure how I speak about things because I don't want people to sit with dread. I don't want people to be panicked. One, it comes at me and that's a lot for me to deal with and I don't want to. But two, that you can't function in life if you're dreading the future. Ask me how I know. I mean, looking at 2020 back in 1997, I know they keep talking about Barbault calling the pandemic. He wasn't the only astrologer saying there would be massive systemic change, massive global change. I'd been looking at it since 97 when my teacher Cosmo had, and yes, his name really was Cosmo and he was in his 90s. He had me look at it and he said, I'm not going to live to see it, but you will, and you have kids and you need to be ready. And I just saw that everything would change. To me, it almost looked like nuclear war because it was just that big of a change. The detonation, and I've talked about this for a long time, the detonation to our social fabric, our cultural fabric, our institutions was done in 2020. And it had been coming if we look back at the patterns. It started actually in the 1800s with the Industrial Revolution, but we're seeing this next big change and all the adjustments. It is significant to see what's happening in July. Around July 19th. I do think there'll be significant fires. I think there's going to be significant weather. Those things all add up. They change things. But the wrecking ball that we see happening to our systems, which is so much bigger than McCankle's, is so much bigger than him. He's a symptom. Yeah. And I've said, regardless of who won that election, we would be sitting in massive systemic change. How it played out, there might have been better marketing, but the concerted effort to dismantle the systems would have still been there. And in fact, I think we would have had more of a likelihood of a civil war had the other candidate won. I don't see a civil war, so to speak, in the US. I really don't. I know you guys think, a lot of people think there will be. I think the damage is so far done, that's not going to happen. And as I've looked at 2028, and I'll talk about this in the community, there are things I'm not going to talk about here in a public venue. And it's not just because I want to keep the information. It is just because of the nature of the information. It's too easy to take it out of context. And so putting it back behind in the magazine tier, there's a little bit of protection on the retaining the integrity of what I have to say. 28 is another part of the cycle that we're seeing happen this month, coming up in July. Well, not this month, we're in May, but in July. I don't know why I'm skipping June in my head. I don't know. I feel like I'm already in June. Okay. But July 19th, maybe I'm trying to get to my birthday. Am I getting to my birthday? I'm concerned. 28, we have some significant astrology, especially in November. I know everybody thinks, I don't know how to say this. Like, I'm not convinced we see an election in 2028. We could, but I think our systems are further, I wouldn't say eroded, but exploded. I don't know. It's very interesting. There's definitely massive change and that it's beyond little bits. And so it could be a variety of things happening. I'm not even convinced it's balkanizing, which means the country breaking up into regions. I don't know. We're a little far out to have context for that. So I'll delineate that inside of the awake space and talk about that more. Right now, I'm preparing for the 2027 year ahead. And one of the cool things that's going to happen with that is you're going to get, if you sign up for the June event, you will get a digital copy of the yearly astrology planner that I'm creating, and you will get the recording and the recording of the Q&A. I never put the recording of the Q&A out to the public. It is a month by month preparation and prediction. So I give you what the theme of the month is and how you can work with that energy, how you could prepare for that time period. Um, and it's practical. It's energetical, it's emotional, it's psychological, and it's practical. Brass tacks, get your garden ready. Brass tacks, have a side gig. Brass tacks, don't get rid of fabric. Keep things that you can upcycle, get some skills, learn how to sew, learn how to blah, blah, blah. That kind of information. To me, knowledge isn't power unless you know how to use it. So I give you ways to use the knowledge that I'm putting out. And then, of course, what I think is going to happen out in the world, whether it's weather or political, etc. I know you guys all want the day, the big, beautiful obituary. That is almost impossible to predict. The health crises are obvious that I was saying, the modern medicine that is being used. I think I've just about got that figured out astrologically. We don't have references on what we have in modern medicine now, like stem cells. We don't really have astrological rulership for that. And so it's really kind of having to come up with it. We're in such a time of significant change that our traditional interpretations need updating because the world is changing with technology, advances in pharmacology, advances in medical treatment. It's hard enough to translate the four humors into like antibiotics, but like stem cells. And I'm very convinced stem cells play a role. And if you're in the awake space community, you'll remember why I was talking about. So that's the only thing that makes sense because Mitch McConnell shouldn't be here. And I don't mean that from an ethical or moral standpoint. I mean, physically shouldn't be here. There were transits that, if we went by traditional interpretation, should have taken him out. They didn't. So I'm just going to say that's that. Um, what else? Again, we're going to talk about Ashley Sinclair. The room is starting to heat up already. What time is it? I have to check. It's only 10:20 in the morning. Good Lord. It's been a wild time. And you're like, Laurie, you scared me. What about, feel free to join the awake space. I'm going to talk about it in there in the magazine tier. And right now I'm just postulating. Right now I'm still working it out. I haven't dived into it because as much as some of it is mental, I also do kind of surf the cosmic tide. I do kind of dive into the energy and there's things I don't want to dive into right now. So there's that. All right. All right. We're going to be talking about community news and doing some member shout outs. All right, we're going to do some community news and welcomes to our not nudist, community members. Although you never know on our live streams. If you want some fun, we do a lot of community building in the awake space because what have I been saying for the last 6 years? You got to build small groups of trusted people that you can count on. You want to have a diverse range of skills because as we go through massive systemic change, you need to be able to call on your friends. I mean, that's it. Remember the song, I get by with a little help from my friends? That is Pluto and Aquarius, my friends. Speaking of Pluto and Aquarius, man, everybody's making a big deal about Pluto retrograde. We're really lucky Pluto is retrograde, especially as Mars moves into that square. I'll talk about that a little later in the podcast. Um, if it was direct, the explosions would be phenomenal. I think we'll still see some boom booms, but it won't be as bad as if Pluto were direct. So count your chickens after they hatch. Anyway, what do we got coming up? We've of course got our live streams. I've been glowing live almost every night since at least this last week. Again, been dealing with my personal physicality from this trip. Travel bloat is not a joke. And man, when you get older, things are a little more sensitive. I tell you, pushing 60 here. I used to think, man, when I'm old, that's not going to happen to me. It's not true. And no, I'm not old, but the body does its thing. You probably hear the fan in the background. It is getting really hot in here. I'm going to be working through to get this podcast finished so I can edit it and have it ready for you on Monday. What else is going to happen? So make sure you use your discount if you are an Awake Space community member to sign up for the 2027 preparation and prediction event. It usually goes 2.5, 3 hours, and that includes the Q&A. The way it works when I do these is I do a presentation and I take a break and then I come back and we do the Q&A. So you make sure you write down all of your questions. What happens if you can't come? You still get the recordings. You get the recording of the Q&A. No, I will not answer questions after the event itself, but you will get the Q&A section that is asked by people. That tends to be great questions at these events. And I encourage questions. Okay. So make sure you write those down. Don't ask me about your personal travel plans because I really can't answer that outside of a reading. You have your own astrology. I can say it's a bad time for travel and it could be the best time for travel for you. Okay. I do think we need to be wary this year of flight cancellations and things like that. And with Ebola spreading, we'll probably see some restricted travel. Okay. If you live in Nebraska, you probably don't have to worry about Ebola. Okay, just saying. If you live in New York or Houston or LA, maybe, London, you need to keep your eye out. But they'll probably be on that at the airports. Um, it's not always about you, right? Sometimes it's about you and sometimes it's not. But the great questions that people can ask are broader, less specific to you. Because without your chart, I can't ethically answer, and I'm not going to do people's charts in an event like that. So I am going to have a group reading soon. If you are a patron, keep your eyes out for that. You'll hear about it first. You'll hear about it first. So those are 10-person groups. Everybody gets 10 to 15 minutes. And it's really fun. They're really fun. So not only do I get your questions answered, I also um, help you, make decisions, like if you're looking to move, making career changes, etc. But the group dynamic is so fun. It's so far it's just been ladies, and so but if you're not a lady, you can come, okay? And that could be you're a woman or a broad, okay? But you could be a dude, right? Yeah, I don't care. We're equal opportunity here. But you could be a they them. I don't care. But it's a really supportive environment and we have a really good time. And if you have like a really specific like 2, 3 questions, it is an economical way to get time with me and to get those questions answered. It usually goes 2, 3 hours. I say 90 minutes, it usually goes longer. You don't have to stay the whole time, but the people who do get a lot out of it, and it's a very supportive environment. It's a lot of fun. So you can have your glass of wine or whatever, your Ovaltine. I don't care what you're drinking. We had a really great result. I had Elizabeth came to, I think, my latest group. Let me pull this up. So Elizabeth came to my latest group, and hang on, let me trying to get the stand to stand here so I can read. I'm doing this on my new iPad. Okay, so we had a little mishap with some iced coffee. I don't think it killed my laptop. I hope not, because it's a gaming computer. And it's very fast and spiffy, so hopefully the laptop is okay. I don't know. I haven't checked it out. I'm going to let it be. I'm just going to let it be. Well, we use the new iPad because there's an app I found out about at the podcasting um, podcast show in London, which was a really cool event that I went to this week. And there's an app where I can do like dual cameras, and that was really neat. But I'm going to come back and see if I can find Elizabeth's comment. She put it here. So she sent this to me, but she also put it in the Awake Space Lounge, which is the general chat area for all supporting members. So, hi, Laurie. I hope you're enjoying your time in London. I just wanted to let you know that I got the job in the planning department as a historic preservationist. I could not have done this without your help. I had been lost for several years trying to find a pathway out of teaching. And when we had our reading in May of 2024, I was desperate. You helped me see my transits and figure out timing. I ended up enrolling in a graduate school that fall. I graduate in May of 2027. You said at our last session, which was about a month or two ago, and this was in the group reading, um all that I had a lot of things coming in at once, and I did. All of my work deadlines, grad school deadlines, and several interviews happened last week. It was hectic, but I was prepared. I have followed you since about 2021 or 2022 and tried to pay attention to my transits. I'm obviously no expert by any means, but your magazine, your reports, your podcast, and check ins were tools that helped me figure out when to act. I've also learned to pay attention to my personal transits, and even though I still don't know what all of them mean, I tried my best to work with the energy. I couldn't have done this without you. Oh, Elizabeth, I'm so happy for you. That's why I give all this information out. I try to, equip you as best you can, or equip you as best I can so you can take the action that is most meaningful for you in your life. This position is perfect for what I need for the next 12 months till I graduate, and it will allow me to segue out of my current career. Thank you for everything. See, I told you it was going to work out. And then she says, just a message to anyone going through the same thing, to trust the process and trust the transits. I started attempting to leave my career in 2019, but the pandemic hit, and with my child so young, I thought it best to hold. Ironically, I got a side gig writing historic contexts around the same time. Once I really started to pay attention to my transits and began letting go and stop trying to force things, that's the key, things fell into place. It's been a long, long journey, and my Capricorn stellium with Saturn in the mix was the rigid teacher, but things are looking brighter. Thank you not only to Laurie, but everyone here, and she meant the Awake Space community, which is an amazing community. And do we make fart jokes? Yes, we make fart jokes. Are we irreverent? Yes, we're irreverent. But you know what? That's what you need to get through life. You can have a shitty day and you can come in and somebody's going to be cracking a joke and it's going to make you laugh. We have some of the most compassionate, caring people. You go into the venting chamber, you've got people right at your side. You've got your sisters and your brothers at the Awake Space. They're like cousins, they're like family. And the kind you like, not the kind you're not still talking to. Okay. So, all of that happens at the Awake Space. So if you're a patron and you're wanting to get some time with me, I know sometimes it's difficult to get a reading with me. We do have the astrologers, Susie, Damien, and Shelby. They're all amazing. You could check out the astrologers roundtable. That's going out in the Patreon. I had one in the podcast last week, but you can check it out in the Patreon. It's a free post, so head over there, and we're still talking about how we serve our clients, and you can hear each person's point of view. Everybody has a different personality and a way they deliver information to their clients. So you could check that out through the astrologers round table. And just remember that an astrology consultation is not an astrology lesson. It is not about learning about your chart. It is about learning about you. Our job is to translate the astrology so you can take action on the information. So, I know there's a lot of people out there who do astrology like almost a lesson and call it a reading. That's not astrology. That's not what astrologers do. We are consultants, always have been, always will be. So we've got Stephanie B and Stephanie AB, different people, different levels. Katsarina, Vonda, May, Barbara, Kara, Lisa, Demi, Still Me, Harmony, Jasmine, Unbothered Hand, Joey Farrell, Leslie Aker, Shira, Amethyst, Nikki, Miranda, Jen, Catherine Marie, Daniela, Jonesy, Marjorie, Alexia, Karen, Kristen, Meredith, Robert, Laura, Susan, and Sheldon. Thank you so much for being supporters of the Awake Space. Without you, there is no podcast. Right now, you can save big if you go to the podcast or to the awakespacepodcast.com and you'll see a ticker. If you've never been a member before, make sure you take advantage of those annual membership savings. Coming up next, we're talking about Ashley St. Clair. All right. I'm sorted now. I had to put a pillow behind me because I don't need my face right in the camera. And I'd said things that, but as big as the room was last week, and you'll see that in the podcast episode I released where I recorded that one, this one's just small and it's hot. So we're going to make it through. All right. All right. We're talking about Ashley St. Clair. Somebody claims they have the birth time. And if we're working from that chart, she has an Aries rising at about 4 or 5 degrees. And it's really interesting. She's got a Cancer Venus and a Cancer Mars. She's a Leo Sun, Leo Mercury. And she has a 1 degree Virgo North Node. So she's in her nodal opposition. It's not a nodal reverse. We're not playing Uno, people. We are not playing Uno. It is not a nodal reverse. It is a nodal opposition. Nomenclature matters. Astrology is a field of study. When you talk like that, scientists laugh at us. Stop it. Stop it. I mean, we don't need to be besties with them, but stop giving them reasons. Nodal opposition. Nodes are calculation points. Okay, they shed no light, but they do show like windows in time by transit. And a nodal opposition is a window in time to kind of get with the picture. So the fact that she's talking about her past deeds, et cetera, is she genuine? I think she is. I think she is somewhat genuine. I don't think she's ever going to be a progressive. All right. People that keep using words without knowing what they mean. And to quote Inigo Montoya from The Princess Bride, you keep using this word. I don't think it means what you think it means. The progressive, I don't think so. I think she is self-interested and I think she cares. I do think when she talks about her kids and protecting them with that Venus-Mars conjunction in Cancer, I would say 100% this is about protecting her kids. You don't have to be progressive or conservative for that. She will be very attached to her children, 100%. So this may be boiling down to her security, and that would be more than money. Okay, this is about the quality of life for her children. This is about their safety and security for her children. I would say that's 100%. She's very close to her family, and the apple doesn't fall far from the tree, especially in this case. Is she running a misinformation campaign? No. In the first video I saw where she was talking about Elon's space lasers, I found that fascinating because I had space lasers in the 2026 preparations and predictions presentation I did back in June of 2025. And I said in June, we'd hear a lot about space lasers. We're close enough into June. We've actually heard about space lasers being developed by China, etc. I know it sounds silly because of what Marjorie Taylor Greene had said years ago, but they can do these things. So when I take a look at the chart, the other thing that I don't see anybody talking about is for Pluto in Sagittarius. That's being activated in a sextile by Pluto in Aquarius right now. And it's going to be pinged by all of the action happening with Barbault's basket. And we'll talk about Barbault's basket at the end of the podcast here, which is significant. And I'm not dissing it. Just like I said back in the beginning of this podcast, my problem with names like that is people run with the term and they don't think about the meaning of the term. Okay, they don't think about what goes into the energy of those aspects. And Barbault himself would have been talking about the energy of those aspects, not just the calculations he did. He would then say the qualities from those calculations would be the thus and so. So anyway, her moon is in Scorpio, and if the chart is correct, if the birth time is correct, it's an 8th house moon. She guards her feelings very, very cautiously. She's only telling you enough. She has a lot more information that she's not saying. She's saying enough to piss people off, but not enough to put her in immense peril. I mean, she's outing the investigators. She's doing that. That's a lot of drama for public consumption. My concern as I watch the rest of what she's putting out, I don't know if I think she's entirely a whistleblower. I think she's confirming things that have already been said. Elon himself admitted to certain activities. Trump said that Elon was good with the computers. As much as people are saying satellites couldn't have influenced the election, all due respect to Hawk, okay, on TikTok. I think if you're still on TikTok and you know who Hawk is, or Hawkeye Whack-a-Mole or whatever. He has a variety of counts, and he's obviously a good lawyer and knows his stuff about the law. As a political pundit, I would say he is influenced by rhetoric rather heavily and by systems. And I say that as somebody who is a trained political analyst, where you got to get past partisan behavior, look at the mechanics of the system itself. And unfortunately, we've been rope-a-doped by both political parties for a long time. And when you're saying, but the voting machines have these fail safes, you can still disrupt those. Okay. All you need is a hiccup in the program. There was a lot of hacking before the elections. There was, in fact, I'm going to put out to members of the Awake Space community a sheet of all of my predictions around October, November of 2024 that have to do with the dates Ashley was talking about in that original video she did. Because besides space lasers, there were also hacking and espionage. And you could, in theory, send a disruptive signal if there is already, it wouldn't be that hard to put devices in county elections. Some are well organized, some are not. I live in a small state with a small county. I could have easily put something on a machine to disrupt a signal. One of my concerns since the election was there were several hundred people, several hundred, not a few, not a handful, several hundred people from different states, at least a dozen states in my own community, whose votes never got counted. Like they went to check the county register. It showed like they didn't vote. So I don't know that the votes were changed. I think the votes weren't counted, period. And that could be easily achieved through interference. So of course this is all alleged speculation on my part, but it kind of goes with some of the things I had in my micro predictions. My micro predictions are always really interesting because I can have 20 little micro predictions that when you put them all together winds up into one big issue, whether it's a catastrophic weather event and it deals with like I might have flooding, I might have infrastructure damage. They might all be little separate ones, and when we put them together, it's one big event. And so there's things around that in October and November of 2024 that go along with what she was saying. So I found that interesting. Is that proof that something is real? No, it's not, but it just adds weight to the speculation. My concern about her and other people like the Candace Owens, Tucker Carlson's, especially Tucker Carlson, he hasn't turned a leaf. And if you've watched my roast on him, he is one of the most self-interested parties. He will go where the money is. He doesn't believe 90% of anything he says, but he will go where the money says. There's a shift coming. I don't think he is making a move to be president. I will be talking about it on the Awake Space podcast here on how to prepare. So when I'm giving you preparation advice, a lot of times, even if I'm not mentioning the astrology, it is because of what I see in the astrology. Sometimes I don't mention the astrology just because people glom on to the aspects or to the transits and they don't listen to what they need to be doing and they get up in their heads. And that doesn't do any good, right? So knowledge is not power unless you know how to use it. I'm giving you how to use it. I'm empowering you. So my concern with Ashley St. Clair, Candace Owens, Tucker Carlson, some of those people who are breaking off from the mega, I don't think it's just because mega is going to lose and the Republican Party, it will essentially get restructured. Wish I could find that old video I did where I talked about the Republican Party restructuring in this time period. I have one I can find about the Democrats. I cannot find the GOP. And I know I did the GOP first and then I did the Democrats, but hell if I can find those old videos. They're not even private. I don't know what happened to it. So they disappeared. But I think both parties are having to restructure. We could go to a single party. I think our government structure is going to shift dramatically. I was hoping that the energy would go in a different direction. We'll see if there's a stop. I mean, honestly, it's going to have to be a billionaire war, and I used to talk about that. We can hope there's some billionaires with a conscience that slap down some of these tech bros. But these tech bros aren't the geniuses they like to see. I know Elon likes to go on about being a 140 IQ. Like, dude, I had a 156 at 12. He's not that smart to me. In fact, if anything, he's mediocre. But he has money and he has privilege and he has access to enough intelligence to make a problem and do damage. And he's very much done damage to this country. Doge wrecked our government system. And it will take years to rebuild. I don't see us fixing it. I see us having to rebuild. And that culminates in 2028. Like the boom culminates. And then there's a rebuilding process. I think we'll start seeing some of that with Barbault's basket that comes in July. We'll start seeing a turning point of some kind with that. But the big square between Saturn and Pluto that happens in 2028 has had my attention for multiple years. And I've started talking about it now. Remember, I used to say I don't want to talk about it. That's why I look at it and I'm like, I don't want to dive into that energy. So I will in the Patreon. Okay. I will in the community for magazine subscribers and up. If you've ever watched my roast of Tucker Carlson, you know he's a self-interested actor, and he really is an actor. He's so disingenuous. Watching Hunter Biden is interesting. Now, he obviously has an axe to grind. He has his own personal interest, and he may have an axe to grind with the system itself because of growing up watching his father in politics. There is definite and always has been corruption within the parties, especially in our lifetimes. And I don't know if these guys are doing this out of the goodness of their hearts. I sense people are trying to get on a certain side. It could be a counter measure to the current administration, but it's just a whole lot of lawlessness at the moment, kind of like the Wild Wild West. And I'm kind of going all over the place, but I'm going somewhere with it. I don't think Ashley St. Clair is disingenuous, but I think there is something behind what she's doing. I think she might have the backing of someone else to keep her safe. I don't think I think she's not stupid. I think she's very intelligent. I don't think she's necessarily doing this for money, although there might be some financial compensation. I don't think that's why. I think it's to keep her safe. I think it's to keep her safe. She's also, you know, she's young. She's really young. She was born in 98. She's not even 30. So this is about the time of going, oh God, what have I been involved with? I don't see any of this as disingenuous. I think she is looking back at her younger self saying, oh my God, how was I used? I think all of that is real. And I think she will be as straight a shooter as she can be. She does hold a lot of secrets and she holds a lot of other people's secrets. And that's how she's going to keep herself safe. But I do believe there's probably a player, a significant player, who is guaranteeing her safety. So now who that is, I'm not going to speculate. But I wouldn't see her taking this action if it jeopardized her children. And I think this is about keeping her kids safe, keeping her family safe. She has probably realized that she was in the wrong space if she wanted her kids to be safe. She's probably also realizing how she was cultivated for these things. And she's mentioned that in some of her, I don't watch all of her videos, but I did find the one somebody sent me last week very interesting, especially with the October dates, because those, I had predictions that lined up exactly with what she was saying. So is she lying? No, she's not. What is her motivation? I think primarily to keep the family safe, to keep her children safe. I think that will drive every single thing she does. Okay. Just like I've said about Marjorie Taylor Greene. When it comes to her kids, she'll do anything. She's got Mars and Cancer. I don't have to agree with someone to recognize a strength, a virtue, a skill. Okay. I think a lot of the people that were used for mega are realizing the repercussions of what happened. I don't think they're having come to Jesus moments. I don't think they're going to be apologetic for being sexist or racist or anti-LGBTQIA. I don't. I honestly think we could see things turning against APAC, but you saw what happened with Thomas Massey. So this is global. It's not just impacting the United States, and I cannot emphasize that more. When the scope of this massive systemic change is so huge. It is undoing all recognizable institutions. They may be kind of like, like in England, the royal family. It's a historical marker. The royal family it's a constitutional monarchy. They're symbolic. They don't have a lot of teeth. And I think that's what we're going to see in the United States with some of our government institutions. There are calls for changes in our government, amending the Constitution, changing up the Supreme Court. I don't see how any of that's going to happen with the current players. I just don't. I see the potential. I do not see the failure of the Constitution, but we may end up in a situation where it's not about the Constitution. That makes sense. I'll speak less vaguely in the future. So let's talk about the astrology of the week. What's in the headlines comes out on Patreon on Sunday because I got it pre-recorded. I have to go finish writing June now. I'll go to the Victoria and Albert Museum to do that. But let's talk about the astrology of the week and we'll see what's up with that. We've got a lot going on. We've got that Mars square Pluto action getting ready to happen. Luckily, Pluto is retrograde. I know there were all these people going, "Oh, it's retrograde. Oh no." Pluto retrograde is excellent. If Pluto was direct with Mars and Taurus getting ready to square off with it, we would have massive explosions. I think we will still see explosions at perfection when a planet is perfecting the aspect. Usually you're dealing with whatever situation showed up on the approach. I'm hoping this means that chemical issue in Garden Grove is that everything leaks out and it doesn't explode. I have people who live really, really close to there. So I have my eye on that. They're not in the evacuation zone, but if it were to explode, the gas would impact a huge area. Also, Anaheim is not 20 minutes from Garden Grove, maybe in traffic, but geographically, no, it's really close. So let's take a look. I wasn't surprised to hear that the Fed was going to drop rates, which is going to cause further inflation. Um, that's not great. But really, this week, I think some of the biggest things we're going to see is dealing with chemicals, after effects of flooding, and travel. I think we're going to see with Ebola spreading, and I'm not an expert on diseases, but one of the things I said with the Saturn Neptune conjunction in Aries, is we would see more fevers. Because people were asking me, would we see another like COVID? And I was like, well, not a COVID, but a fever. And hemorrhagic fever makes a lot of sense with that being Aries. My concern, especially after doing charts and channeling with Matilda, and we'll have that available for sale in our communities, in our community shops. It's 3.5 hours. Okay. It's a lot. It's a lot, I'm telling you. It's funny when we originally did it before the file corrupted, so our live event, we had to re-record it because the file corrupted. But at the live event, I was kind of working cold, okay? Because it's more fun for me, okay? It's just a personal challenge and I enjoy it. It's like everybody needs a game, okay? That's mine. And I kept seeing waterborne disease and I do think we'll see like a typhoid, a malaria, yellow fever, something waterborne, diphtheria, which diphtheria is already in Australia, folks. But we saw a lot of like border closures, storms, and this is what people don't realize. There's a lot of trade between China and East Africa. The borders are very porous. It's very easy to move through borders out of Democratic Republic of Congo, Uganda, those areas up into Kenya, Ethiopia. We could see this spread through East Africa. We could also see it go towards Asia and Southeast Asia. They have lost track of people. That's bad news because one person can spread this pretty rapidly. It doesn't mean everybody on the planet is going to get Ebola. I think Western Europe may shut travel. In fact, I've joked a lot about me getting stuck here, and I might. I might. There might be travel restrictions. There may be no flying for a minute as we move into June. This week, I think we could see travel restrictions. We could see testing happen at airports. It looks like they got the jet fuel figured out. So I don't think we'll see, and I didn't think we'd see closures with jet fuel, but I did see travel restrictions. I think there's other things besides the common cold that yours truly has. I am concerned about climate change above all else, and that will bring us more viruses and bacteria. You can't just stay shut in. You can only do the best you can do. And how did we control disease before we had all the wonderful vaccines and pharmaceutical ways of taking care of things? Sanitation. Wash your hands with soap. The amount of people who don't wash their hands with soap. Hand sanitizer is okay, but it does not do as good a job as soap. And that's a scientific fact. Soap and water to it, you dirty bastards. But anyway, so there's that. Let's take a quick look because I know there's stuff coming up and I'm just sick. I'm gonna cheat. I'm gonna look at my slides. So this week we've got the sun trine Pluto, we've got the Venus square Saturn, and we've of course got that full moon in Sagittarius on May 31st, May 28th, Venus square Saturn. I think a woman is going to go at the president. I think a woman's going to go at the president. I think that could be really interesting. We could also see a woman taken down, a peg. I mean, we saw Tulsi Gabbard resign. I think that was more the Venus square Neptune. But I think as some of the rats are leaving the we might see people trying to poke holes in the ship further. But I think a woman will go after the president, and it may come out unexpectedly. And no, I don't think it's Ashley St. Clair. I don't think she has the right clout to meet that. But we will see women of all kinds taking a poke at power. And we will also see some interesting economic news. I don't think we're seeing a stock market crash. Look, the market hasn't crashed. The market is not the same market it was in 1929, and it's not reflective of the overall economy either. It's not. It's reflective of its own world. So that full moon is in Sagittarius, and it will be revealing maybe some uncomfortable truths. It will be revealing some international scandals. But will there be any repercussions with it? I don't think we're going to see repercussions for people the way people want. I just don't. I think when it comes to accountability, and I said this would be accountability season, I think accountability is for us all. And I've said that repeatedly. Inaction, complacency, handing our power away, not understanding that you can't just give people your power and expect them to do right by it. Not holding people accountable. One of my greatest frustrations, even before Obama became president, but it got really bad after Obama, was when we criticized Democrats, people would immediately go, oh, so you're a Republican, you want them? You happy with that? And I was like, if you can't criticize the people that you voted for, that represent your interests, then you're not in a democracy. You have to be able to hold people to account. If you're not doing it, who is? Okay, so that lockstep is terrible. It's terrible. You can't just criticize the other side. You have to be self-critical. You have to be self-analytical. And when we stopped allowing that discourse, that was the end of things. Seriously. When I tell you this situation is bigger than a single country, I am not kidding. How it will look, I don't know. I don't think we're going to watch all institutions fail. I don't think we're going to wake up and the world is completely different. I think there will still be shocks. I think there will still be banks. I think there will be certain parts of how we live will be there. But the power structures are changing. And they're changing over, really seriously over the next 5 years. Will it be people power? Keep joining together. Keep going to local meetings. You don't want those data centers. Show up. Show up. Show up. Like I said, I'll talk more about this in the community. That's what the community is for, is where you get that detailed information. And yeah, sometimes it comes sandwiched in a long live stream where we make jokes and talk, but it'll be sandwiched in there. I know it can be a lot to navigate inside of that community. I'm going to take a look at how to streamline it. If you're in the astrology crew, always start with the astrology class library and start with the sun. Start with the sun, move through Pluto. Start with house 1, move through house 12. You don't learn it all over the place. We have an alphabet in astrology, and the order of the planets is there. So I had Alicia organize it, so it should show up in order in the collection because it didn't before. I don't know why, but anyway, you can find that there. And if you're in Laurie's test lab, I promise I'm coming between the travel bloat, which was gross, and the cold. I was like, I could only do so much, but I'm hoping to get into a podcast studio this week. Hopefully, they have air conditioning. I would imagine they do because they have equipment that has to stay cool. And I hope you enjoyed the photos at the Chelsea Flower Show because it was phenomenal. I don't know if it was the heat or what, but let's talk about Barbault's basket because I forgot to while I was recording the main podcast. So a lot of people are talking about Barbault's basket and who is Barbault. He was an astrologer and he passed away a couple of years back. But he was well known for his use and entertaining of cyclical measurements, is specifically looking at the outer planets and their angular structures. But here's some of the last predictions he made in his life. So and so he was talking about the years between 2026 and 2030. So those were the last ones by Andre Barbault. However, he did predict upheaval in 2020, as did a lot of us. Okay. Those of us who were looking at 2020, he would have been looking at it far longer than I had. I had an old astrologer who had been contemporaries with Dane Rudyard. He was in his 90s. His name was Cosmo, believe it or not. And he was one of my mentors back in the 1990s. In 97, he handed me some dates, 2020, 2025, respectively. And he said, hey, look, you need to look at these. I'm not going to live to see it. You will. You have children. You need to be ready. So, because we will go through the years of rapid fall in the cyclical index, planetary concentration up to the subsidence of 2020/2021, epoch of the triple conjunction Jupiter, Saturn, and Pluto. And that happened in Capricorn. And that is why all of you who had your Saturn returns during that time, I was calling you spiritual warriors because that was a heck of a Saturn return. Don't worry, your second Saturn return will not be as intense, and nothing ever will be in your lifetime. That Jupiter Saturn Pluto conjunction was no joke. Moreover, wounded by the semi square between Uranus and Neptune, that is a time of universally chaotic that affects both nature and human society. So it's massive systemic change. All systems, whether it's natural systems, man-made systems, that was the change coming up. And so it ended up being COVID-19, but also climate change. Okay, we saw the impacts. The peculiarity of the turning point of 2026 through 2030 is represented by the centrality of the Saturn-Neptune conjunction at the beginning of Aries, nucleus of convergence of the verb Neptunian, vital priority reinforced by the concurrence of deep Saturnian foundations. Now, Saturn in Aries only lasts through 2028. It's 2026 to 2028. There's other things going on as well. So it's not the Neptune Saturn conjunction the whole time of the 26, 28. In fact, the Neptune Saturn conjunction is done officially. Okay. However, the energy rings out over time. All of these things in a cyclical index show the energy ringing out over time. Both of them, they have the nature of the IC, interiority prevails, such as the ocean floor or the depths of crust, with Psyche having the upper hand if necessary, hence the awakening of the mysterious life. It's necessary to consider the zodiacal calendar associated with this conjunction. It already happens that the entry into Aries is preeminent, but they are all and four planets in a triangle with each other that move as if they wanted to metamorphose the world. We are faced with the possibility of a change such as to make it seem too weak in terms of change or the same upheaval to define the breadth of what could transform the known world. This is right in line with what I've been telling you, that we're seeing the greatest change since the end of the Bronze Age. That takes time to happen. You couldn't handle that change all in one breath. What we have happening throughout this time period is the change of all power dynamics, all structure dynamics. Does it lead to good things? It could, it can. And we are those who are making it happen. When I say it's accountability season, I mean accountability for everybody, not just the people you want to see be accountable, but all of us have to be accountable for the outcomes, doing as much as we can, where we can, with what we have. You can't just hand your power over to other people. So, and so these are translations. If I can find the French translation, I will give it to you. He wrote in French, so I'll look those up and translate them, and I'll talk about it as we move through June. So what I have for the week of July 19th is a lot of fires, okay? The heat index as I sit here sweating from my hotel room in London, sitting on the bed because that's the most comfortable place I have at the moment. No, I didn't make it to the VNA today. I'll do that later this week as it gets hotter and hotter. We will see historic heat indexes as throughout the globe. Okay, we just will, especially as Jupiter enters Leo. It's just going to be unbelievably hot, unbelievably humid, especially, obviously places where there's not a lot of humidity, you'll have more than normal. But if you're on a coast, oh, it's going to be a sauna as we move through the summer. Bad fire season globally. You're going to see bushfires, wildfires, forest fires in historic proportion. Okay, it's unfortunate that they're trying to get rid of the Forest Service and other public lands husbandry, because we need it more than ever in this moment. And obviously, private concerns aren't really caring too much about taking care of things. On a personal level, you can use this energy to good effect. It is powerful energy, and that's something I'll be talking about in the Patreon. So talk to you later.